Hi, this is Angel Jones. I love great conversations where life's journey is communicated not only through words, but tones and emotions. Explosive expressions that allow you to feel what they felt and learned. A fool learns only from his own mistake, while the wise learn from their own and from those others have made. Thanks for being here with us. Good night, Daniel Hanzelka. How are you going on this wonderful, beautiful night?
I'm doing great, and I'm looking forward to this conversation that we're going to have.
Hey, it's going to be fun. I'll tell you that. I'm sure about it. Daniel, tell me, which of your talents is responsible for us meeting?
You know what, Angel, the problem is going to have to be my ability to really think of new ways and creative ways of doing things to help others. One of the things that I'm focusing now is at the present time is really helping coaches, consultants, and service-based professionals to generate more sales using their LinkedIn profile and some of the social media networking that's available now online.
Who did you learn this skill from?
You know what? I actually, where did I learn it from? I'll start this way: out of necessity, because being in the coaching and being in the financial industry, that's kind of was always the struggle, and really how I've learned it is I hired a coach that has helped me with this, and I remember when he started helping me, one of the first thoughts that I had was, you know what, this thing might be working for you, but it's not going to work for me. And the particular coach I was working with, he was very successful. He built a multi-million-dollar insurance business using LinkedIn. And I do particularly remember, when he was explaining some of these things, I'm like going, you know what, this stuff, it's so new. I don't really understand this. There is no way how this can work for me. And how I actually started implementing some of the things, I actually wanted to prove him wrong and says, okay, you know what, I know you tell me this works, but I'm going to show you how it's not going to work for me. And boy, was I wrong.
Well, I'm so glad that you did. I have been hearing about LinkedIn and the value of it. One person today actually was talking about how LinkedIn is definitely not Facebook, and people need to understand how to use it, and that's the value of a coach in this particular medium. But it is effective, right? What are the numbers as to the amount of people that are on LinkedIn, professionals?
You know what? At this point, I think the number is somewhere between 450 to 500 million people that are on there. And I believe the statistic is that there is 2 new members that are joining in every second.
Wow.
So it's definitely a network that's growing and growing quite drastically. And you're right. You know what? It's not like Facebook, but it's also not what I think a lot of people think about LinkedIn, that it's like, well, I just go there, post my resume, and that's it. It has become more of a platform how to actually meet people, get to know them, and build a relationship with them. And the biggest thing is, I think often people have to realize that you can't sell anything on, if it's LinkedIn, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, you can't really sell anything. It's strictly there to build a relationship with someone, and then at some point you have to take the conversation offline.
Yes.
Right, and there are different ways of doing that. So it's, again, people think, LinkedIn, it's all about resume, and that's kind of what it started. It was for job seekers, but it has certainly changed in the in the last few years, and it's there as a professional network, and it's certainly a great way to build relationship with people.
Love it. If someone wants to connect with you, Daniel, what's the best way for them to connect with you? Is it LinkedIn? Do they search you on LinkedIn?
Yeah, LinkedIn would be one way of doing that. My name is Daniel Hanzelka. I think you're going to have probably notes on the podcast, but
Sure.
I'll spell it. It's DanielHanzelka, and pretty well if you go on Google, I'm pretty well you're going to be able to find me on LinkedIn profile, which is another thing too that I tell people. Let LinkedIn help you promote your business, because whenever you go and search for someone on Google, LinkedIn profiles and Facebook profiles, the social media profiles will come up first. So you don't even have to do any search optimization for your name. If you are on these networks, you will be right on top of Google
Nice.
from that perspective. So that's a great thing for people to have. I see a lot of people spending a lot of time building their websites. They're nice and they're important, but you know what? If don't spend your time on building a website, you know what? It's not going to make you money right away. Start, focusing on using the social media to help you with that on Google.
Wealthy knowledge right there, Daniel. Wealthy knowledge. Thus, the value of the podcast has just increased.
Well, listen, that's what it's all about. It's about helping others and helping them to really accomplish what they want to accomplish. So
love it. Share with us one other thing that you've done consistently over the past 3 years, please.
You know what? When it comes down to, for me, it's always kind of seeking out for the truth. What is the truth in everything? And there's a bit of a story of that. I was originally born in Czechoslovakia. I lived under communism, and I always tell people I was lied to pretty well from the day I was born by government. There's this thing that I have with my parents and things that happen. I'm not going to get into details, but truth is something that's very important for me. And one of the consistent things that I have done over the last 3 years is, and longer, I feel like my whole life is, seeking out the truth in the 4 areas of life that we have, where there is faith, family, fitness, and finance. And I believe it's important, and kind of the purpose for me in life that I look at that I have. And when I went to some training and I've learned this, is that really my purpose in life is to learn the truth, then to live out that truth in my life, and then go out there and share it with everyone. And that's really what's the driving force behind me. What I've been doing on a consistent basis is learning things. I used to think that it was very difficult to go and generate leads and make sales in general in my business. And because I've learned, this information, how to go and utilize LinkedIn to go and do that, right? I've learned that it's not quite as difficult as we tend to think. It only seems difficult because we don't know how to do it. So when we are always thinking about learning what is, new things and learning what is the truth, start living it out, start using it ourselves. And I think the best way to really learn something is to go out there and share it and teach it to someone else, because that's really where you learn it the best.
Totally agree. How does it make you feel, Daniel?
You know what? It really, at the end, it makes me feel alive, because, like I said, that's what I really feel like why I'm here. So, I believe that there's 2 important days in our life. The first one is when we're born, and the second one is when we find out why. And I was in the financial industry before, and not that I didn't feel that that's what I was really supposed, what I was doing, but it just didn't kind of feel right. And when I moved more into the coaching, I feel a lot more fulfilled, and being able to really help others and help them to achieve what it is that they want to achieve. And again, as I mentioned, at this point, I'm really focusing on helping people to, get more leads using LinkedIn. And, at the end, that's what really fulfills me, and that's why I'm doing what I'm doing.
Love it. Daniel, let's switch gears for a bit now. Let me invite you into my time machine that is surrounded with beautiful, warm, blue Caribbean water. Daniel, what is your earliest child memory?
Interesting that you mentioned that. The first thing that I can remember is when I was skiing. So we're going all the way from beautiful warm weather into winter, which we are here in Canada entering right now. But I'd have to say, when I was skiing, again, it was something that, from fairly young age, I think, with my parents, I think the first time I probably went skiing, I should ask them exactly what it was, but it was probably around the age of 4 or 5 years old. And the fond memories that I've had was when I was actually skiing professionally. Again, I said professionally. I was like 7 or 8 years old.
Wow.
But that would be something that I do remember from my childhood. So yeah, you've taken me to nice and warm weather, and I took it kind of to the winter side of things. But I do enjoy winter, and I love skiing. So that's something that I remember from my childhood.
Why do you think this memory in particular is so clear?
I'd probably have to say partly because what kind of happened after. And we're kind of going from happiness to a little bit unhappiness. My parents went through a divorce and separation when I was 9 years old, and that kind of have shaped my life as to what it is right now. And so I think for me that was kind of the happy time before the things kind of weren't as happy as they turned out.
Yeah.
So I think if I have to go, why that was kind of the memory that I remember, that probably would be it.
All right, all right. I like the idea though of with skiing, the thought picture created as to the process, and it's so much like using social media, using a platform like LinkedIn, where it's rather tedious to get to the top, right? But once you're there, then you get to choose the joy, which side you're coming down, in terms of how fast you can come down, or how great it will be, right? So you could stop at different places, right? You could stop halfway up, three-quarter way up, or all the way to the top, and then get down. And I think with a coach, it brings that balance as well as to where you want to go.
Oh, definitely. I think the one thing that you just mentioned, what I think, everybody needs to realize, that we are in control, and we have and do and have choices that we can make.
Yes.
And I think that's kind of the picture that you're saying, that whatever you're doing, wherever you're at, if you're not getting the results, that give you happiness, you get to change, right?
Yes.
You get to do something different, and you do have, everybody has that power to go and do that.
Exactly. Love it. If we fast forward to when you were 12, what was your favorite song?
When I was 12, I'm a child of the 80s, and living, at that point I was still living in communist Czechoslovakia. So for me, I'm not sure if there's one song, but when you ask me that question, I'm kind of brought back to the disco era. So it would be the 80s,
right?
Disco music, where that would be. I can't even remember exactly which songs, but I still do fondly listen to someone because it does bring me back to that. So I'd have to say it would be kind of the 1980, that would be 84, 85 disco music that was kind of very popular in Europe at that time.
All right. It would be so good to have one song that we could put in there.
You know what? The one that would come is Life is Life, and the funny part of it is, when I was listening to it at the age of 12, I had no clue what they were singing or saying. It was only when I came to Canada and I listened, which was probably about 4 years, probably about 3 years after that. I was in Canada and came to here when I was 14. When I learned the English language, then I actually would hear the song and I could actually know what they were singing. But up to that point, I had no clue what the words were, because I didn't understand it. But it certainly, we made our own words what we thought it was, which obviously didn't make any sense. But
it's amazing, right? It's amazing, the interpretation, despite the fact of not understanding the language, right? How it came through.
Yeah, and I think this is where music is it's the melody and all that is, it doesn't have, you don't have to, if it's a good melody, a good music, it doesn't matter if you understand the words or not. It's the beat of the music that really moves you.
Yeah.
Right. So.
All right, my friend, we have arrived at our destination, but before we get off of this time machine, there's a small declaration form, so it's yes or no. Daniel, have you chosen someone to pass on your skills to?
No.
Are you married?
Yes.
Do you have children?
Yes.
How many?
2.
Wow. Boy and girl?
Yes.
Wow. Do you believe in God?
Yes.
Do you have an inner circle of friends?
Yes.
Do you watch TV for more than 3 hours a day?
No.
How about 3 hours a week?
No.
What about screen time, the phone and or the computer? More than 8 hours a day or less than 8 hours a day?
Well, you know what? I'm in the business so the answer is yes, more than 8 hours, because that's my business. So I'm sitting in front of a computer pretty well.
Right.
Most of the time. So it's using it for business purposes, but there's certainly some personal life there too. So.
All right. Daniel, this was a great pleasure. Before you leave, is there anything you'd like to share with our amazing audience?
You know what? I guess just the one thing that I would share with them is just listen, believe in yourself and know that whatever the journey that you're on, that you will get there. Just stay consistently on the path, and don't get discouraged if things don't quite go the way that you think that they should, because it's all about just sticking with things and keep on moving in the direction that you're going. And when you focus on that destination, you'll make it.
Love it. Daniel Hanzelka, thank you for being on 12-Minute Convos with Angel Jones.
Well, thank you for having me on, and this has been a great ride, so I appreciate it.
Amazing audience, before you leave, there's one person I'd like to introduce you to, Amanda Jones. She is my wife, and her passion is to educate, encourage, and empower.
Hi, I'm Amanda Jones, and I'm a registered nurse. Do you or someone you know have diabetes? A According to the International Diabetes Federation, in 2015 worldwide, 415 million people were living with diabetes. Just as that figure is overwhelming, so too can the effects of diabetes be. So, to help simplify diabetes for both adult and child, I've used rhymes in my books, The ABCs of Diabetes for Children and Poems for Patients, A Focus on Diabetes. At its simplest, rhymes help us to remember. If you, a child or friend, want an easy, reader-friendly way to know about diabetes, then get a copy of these books. For more details, you can go to poemsbyaj.com. That's poemsbyaj.com.